What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. In this episode, I've got one of the most ridiculous stories for you I've read in a very long time. Now, I know from my analytics that a lot of you watching and listening right now are women. And a lot of you, of course, have husbands. Now, imagine if you find out that your husband had been doing this. My husband has been giving advice to a co-worker about how to make his gay son straight behind his wife's back. This was originally posted on June the 22nd, 2021. I want to preface this by saying that I don't know how my husband is when he's at work. He works an office job, and I work in a daycare as a receptionist, and we also recently purchased our first home. However, everything I learned came from an email from the co-worker's wife that included evidence of conversations between my husband and her husband in regards to their son. Louise and Edward, we'll call them that, recently had their son come out. And from Louise's email and the messages she provided between her husband and mine, she has been supportive, while her husband pretended, in her words, to be, but instead has asked my husband for advice while at work and expressed how he isn't comfortable about it. And my husband has supposedly been trying to comfort him and give him advice on how to fix him despite his wife. The messages she sent me showed them talking about it and ideas to talk to him one-on-one without the wife, along with how they're trying to get together sometime outside of work to discuss it over dinner or something. I never knew my husband felt this way before this situation, but I was able to call Louise and apologize and try to comfort her to the best of my ability, although not knowing her well, and she feels incredibly hurt and lied to by all of this, and I want to help her to the best of my ability, as well as her son if possible, in any way. She said that she hasn't talked to her husband yet, but that she's considered talking to him with one of her parents since she doesn't think she can do it by herself. And I told her that I'm disgusted with my husband, just like she was, but from a different perspective of not having kids yet and not wanting to have kids with someone who thinks like this. First of all, comment down below, guys. What do you reckon? Who is worse here? This woman's husband, who is secretly not very comfortable about the fact that his son is gay and is asking for advice, or OP's husband, who is saying, don't worry, it's alright, we can fix him? I'm pretty sure it's the latter. I mean, they're both not great, but the latter, wow. Back to it. As of right now, I'm still trying to digest all of this emotionally, but I can't express just how angry I am at my husband, and I don't want to be with him anymore because of it. Yeah, that's absolutely fair enough. However, outside of my selfish ambitions, she told me everything yesterday, and I'm yet to confront my husband because Louise said that she's not sure how she wants to go about it yet. And despite it being hard for me not to bring it up, I don't want to jeopardize her in any way and make things harder, since this is about her safety and her son first and foremost, and whatever she feels best to do in her timing. But before I do anything, I want to ask what I should do and when with everything she provided on my end to support her. I'm strongly considering divorce, since I don't want kids with someone who thinks like this, but I first most want to help her and support her in her timing. But she doesn't know what she wants to do yet, and to be honest, it's kind of hard to sit on everything she told me and not confront him. But just thinking about her safety and her son's keeps me grounded, and I just want advice on what to do here moving forward. A quick edit here as well. In the messages between my husband and Edward that she showed me, my husband said that if it were his son, he'd, quote, set him straight, and mentioned punishing him by taking away privileges and not taking him to sports until he changes his mind, along with suggesting that they go to dinner to talk about it outside of work, and about Edward's wife too, since he wasn't thrilled with how open she was to it. Wow. I mean, yeah, like, you just gotta divorce him for that. If you're gonna have kids, and this is a really important thing to you, I mean, even if you're not gonna have kids, like, it's just such a horrible way of thinking that I would just divorce anyway. But imagine you have a son or a daughter, and your husband's like, actually, I don't really want them to be gay. And then when they come out, if they are gay, because I feel like this husband would have a problem with any child of his that wasn't straight, no matter what they were. I think at that point you'd be like, well, I don't want this guy to be my kid's father. So therefore, if you're going to have kids, you've got to divorce him. Okay, now 2 weeks later, we got the following update. When I wrote my last post, I was struggling with how I should tell my husband without putting Louise or her son in danger, since Louise said that she was afraid to tell Edward because of his tendency to get upset over meaningless things, and she was scared of how he could react. I was concerned that if I talked to my husband, he would send Edward a text that could completely blindside Louise. But since my last post, I spoke to Louise again. That's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's a tough spot for you, but I think you were right. You had to let Louise do whatever she was going to do first, and only then, for the safety of her and her child, could you then confront your husband. I think that's the right way of doing things, but I agree with you. Like, very hard to sit on that information and be like, well, I know my husband's homophobic, but I just have to pretend that everything's normal. Anyway, I told her that it was hard to not address him with the news she told me, and she said that she had since spoken to her parents about it, and that it would be fine for me to address him since they would be helping her tell her husband alongside her. She also talked about how Edward pretended to be supportive, but that she felt hurt to know that he lied. I told her that I also felt lied to in a different sense, since my husband said that he would be fine with any orientation that our children could have when we talked about potential kids, only for him to be someone else completely at work. But still, I wanted to talk to him myself, since a part of me hoped that maybe it was just an act. But even if it was, I wouldn't know how to trust him and really know for sure. That did just cross my mind, and I had to sort of second guess myself a little bit there, because I was thinking, well, there's how you feel in real life, and then there's work chat with guys, but that's not the sort of thing that you'd like joke around with. And also, anything that you say with anyone, you have to actually mean it, I feel like. Like, just because you're around, maybe it's like a laddie culture or something. By the way, I'm not like saying this makes it all right. I'm just trying to understand what might have happened. Maybe it's a laddie culture at work, and then your husband's been like, oh, don't worry, we can fix him, as like a bit of a joke when he doesn't actually mean it. First of all, that makes no sense. Secondly, if you're saying that in the first place, then you mean it. Like, you wouldn't say that as a joke, really, would you? I'm trying to find some solace in this for OP and think maybe there's a way this has been taken out of context, but it's like a private conversation between two people at work. And even if it wasn't, and it was like funny or, I don't know, meant to be dark humor or something, it isn't funny, is it? So yeah, I think this is the end. When I spoke to him and showed the emails Louise sent, he didn't deny the messages that she included, but said that I was wrong to talk to her before him, and that he never went through my things. And I thought about that hard. I could have talked to him first, but I chose to call Louise because I was afraid of him telling Edward and blindsiding Louise before she was ready. However, he said that wasn't an excuse and that we come first. But when I asked how he could say what he did in those messages and tell me that he was supportive of our potential children having a different orientation, he said that, quote, I'm probably not the woman he thought he married when I'm at work. What a disgusting statement that is. And that I'm being controlling by questioning his work behavior. And he said that he didn't know if he could trust me either, and that he wanted space between us for a bit. When I asked him straight up what he meant in the messages and his stance on it, he said that Louise was stupid to support him and that he's tired of how overblown gender topics are. He also said that the boy only did it because it was popular and that he probably doesn't get it and will regret it one day. Okay. By the way, just for the record, I didn't try and stand up for this guy with what I said before. I was just trying to find maybe like there was a way in which he'd been pushed into saying something he didn't really mean as a joke, trying to fit in with guys at work that aren't like him. No, I think we're past that point now. Wow. When I asked him what he meant by wanting space, he said he would inquire about staying with his brother, and I was considering staying with my parents before he said that. But as of right now, he's staying at his brother's, and I've been at my parents' for the past couple of days, and they have been supportive and open to hearing me vent. Lately, I've been second guessing myself a lot, and my dad says it's because my husband tried to shift the blame on me, along with how his real self came out when he wasn't around me. And mum said that he had a lack of character. I still want divorce because I still want to have children, but I don't feel like I can have it with him because trust is shattered. But I'm also afraid that I'll never get married again. But I'm not going to let that pressure me into staying. It's worth saying OP is 26 and her husband is only 28. That's like my age. I don't have a wife, so you'll be fine. I'm sure of it. I mean, like, the fact that you're already married at 26 is relatively early, I would suggest, in these days. I mean, it depends where you are in the world, but in the Western world, 26 being married, pretty early, I would say. So don't worry, you've got like loads of time to find someone else. Like, your age is not a reason to stay with somebody ever. Let me make that abundantly clear. My husband, on the other hand, has turned to social media to talk about me being unfaithful, among other things that aren't true at all. And I feel like he's just trying to get out ahead of it. My parents are already helping me with a lawyer, but for the emotional stuff, how do I cope with the fear of never getting married again or being looked down on by other people or friends who don't know yet, along with the doubts that always creep in? You just have to think to yourself that these are inevitable and there's nothing you can do about it, but it's always going to happen. Like, I know I've just said what I've said, and logically, of course, it makes sense, but if you're actually in this situation, then yeah, like, you're fine to have these thoughts, but they will pass. And all that will happen is you'll probably be single for a couple of years maximum. Then you'll find someone and you'll be like, wow, why on earth did I waste time on my ex? Like it's easy to say from the outside looking in. It just is what's going to happen. You're 26. Well, that is young. Younger than me. Okay, now let's get into the final update, which came a year later. July the 8th, 2022. The original post was June the 22nd, 2021. Again, like all these stories, I never really read ahead because I don't want it to get spoiled for me. I just sort of check that it looks good and is a good length for an episode. So I hope, like you guys probably do as well, that there's a good conclusion to this and that they have broken up and OP's found someone else. But let's see. A couple of months ago, I wrote about my husband who gave advice to a co-worker behind his wife's back on how to make their gay son straight. I've since divorced him, but the kid has passed away. That sentence, I was like that, and then I was like that. That's shocking. Okay. I honestly wasn't sure if I wanted to come back and write this, but I'm not sure I could go without it too. The past couple of months have been a lot emotionally, but long story short, there was more going on at the time of my original post than I thought, and I think it's important to add. But before I do, I'll add some context from before. My ex-husband works an office job, and we never had kids together. A couple of months back, I received an email from the wife, Louise, of an employee that my husband worked with, and the email included messages between my husband and her husband, Edward, regarding her son, Jake, 14, who recently came out as gay. Louise was supportive of her son, but Edward vented to my husband at work while pretending to be supportive at home. However, he did more than just vent. My husband did more than blindly agree with him. He said that if it were his son, he'd punish him in ways that would challenge his decision by pulling him out of sports and limiting him to only girls' sports, along with removing friends until he got his act together. In addition to that, they also talked about Louise and how Edward was disappointed by her support for Jake, and my husband offered to go out to dinner to discuss Louise and fix him behind her back by talking to Jake away from her on various drives, among other things, and he even recommended a father-son weekend away to work on him. They also used derogatory words in the messages that Louise shared, and after reading everything, I decided to confront my husband, but not before Louise was ready for the following reasons. Edward had cut off a lot of support from Louise's corner, and when we talked over the phone after the email she sent me, she said that she was yet to tell her parents for support, and I tried to put off on immediately confronting my husband in case he'd message Edward and blindside her before she was ready. It was hard to sit on it, and I did for a few days, but I figured it was easier for me to do that than risk putting them in danger before she was ready. But when I did confront my husband, after she got her parents involved and a plan, he was less than pleased. I told him about the email and the messages I saw too, along with how my husband once said he'd be fine with any orientation that our future children took, and he did not refuse that the messages were indeed his. However, he said I was wrong to talk to Louise before talking to him and that we come first. He also said his job was his personal space and that he didn't like me snooping around in it. Finally, he said that I'm probably not the woman he married when I'm at work, and in my last post I said that hurt the most. He also said Louise was stupid to support Jake because of how overblown gender topics and LGBTQ are, along with how Jake probably did it for attention and will regret it one day. After that conversation, he said he was going to stay as brothers and I plan to stay elsewhere too. He didn't put up a fight and I went to stay with my parents, but that conversation was when I decided on divorce, and he eventually said that he wanted divorce too. So, what's happened since? I want to explain what I said at the top about how there was more going on at the time that I knew about, so I'll do it now. Edward had already enacted his plan of taking Jake to hang out and try to convert him one-on-one before talking to my husband, and she only found out after coming across their messages a few weeks after he had already started, Louise, that is. He also told Jake to not tell her about it, but she had a hard time getting Jake to tell her everything that happened when they were alone, and that included a therapist who she got to talk to him along with private resources that would encourage him. However, the reason I'm returning to this is because Jake has passed away, and he passed while Louise and Edward were still in the stages of their divorce. I had the chance to meet with Louise in person, as well as her son once too, and she told me that her parents were fully on her side and assisting her in the divorce process. Edward wasn't thrilled that she emailed me their messages, but she had her parents there when she talked to him. She also said that she had a hard time telling Jake about the divorce, but I want to make the last part of this about him. Jake took his own life, and Louise said she felt responsible for his death and has been really hard on herself. She also said that she was never able to find out everything that happened between Jake and Edward when they were alone, and that goes for the therapist too. She is currently trying to investigate Edward with help from her parents and a lawyer. But in regards to Jake, I want to say this. I don't think I will ever be able to move on, and part of that is because I feel disgusted at myself for even associating with someone who played a part in this in my ex-husband. It's been hard to do anything on some days since finding out, and I've even been prescribed prescriptions to help me lately as well. It's been even harder on Louise and her parents. But when I asked if there was anything I could do to potentially help remember him, she said that she wants to encourage others to keep fighting so that the same doesn't happen to others too. And that is what also made me want to write this. Not because it's something that will brighten up your day, but because it's something that you need to hear. She wants to ensure that this happens to no one else, regardless of their gender orientation. So, after some time, she's planning on getting involved in her community. Not just LGBTQ groups, but groups that help children in general. She doesn't know when, and she's still going through a lot, but she wants to really soon. As for whoever reads this, I won't tell you how to perceive it. I believe the strongest conviction comes from oneself and not what they're told. I just wanted to share how she's trying to move on, and she knows that I'm sharing this too. To everyone who commented, I can't tell you how much your words of comfort and advice have been received in the previous posts. Louise is now my friend, and I hope we'll be able to be friends for a long time. She's going through a lot, but I believe she'll come out stronger. Thank you to everyone who took the time to read this, and I truly wish you all nothing but the best. Okay, wow, there we go. That is the end of that one. As I said, and you'll know this if you listen and watch me a lot, I don't read ahead because I don't want to know what's happened, like you guys. Sometimes that leads to like great moments and great stories. Other times it leads to stories like this that are just deeply sad. But I think the only thing that we can do as readers and listeners of this post is just do what OP and Louise want us to do and never let this happen to anyone again. I genuinely felt like as I was reading that, I was getting a sort of, I felt roused in a way to ensure that this didn't happen again. I don't know if you guys felt that as well, but like it really does hit home when someone that's been through something like this wants to make sure, like, give their life to this not happening again, and you know, wants people to talk about it, wants everyone to know what happened, etc., so that other people don't take their own lives. Yeah, just like horrible, really. A few themes there. I mean, obviously we have like the obvious one, but I also want to talk about like people who hide their moral beliefs from the people they marry. That is I've never really thought much about it, but like the fact that OP didn't know this about her husband, and I assume Louise didn't know this about Edward before they married or had kids, is like crazy, because this has been a thing for them the entire time. I'm sure, like they've known this, haven't they, these men? But their wives had no idea. I mean, OP literally asked her husband, or ex-husband now, do you care about having children that aren't straight? He said, no, absolutely not. He was just lying. How can you combat that? What was there to do to get around that, to stop that? I don't think there is anything you can do, which is deeply troubling. But yeah, very sad end to that story. I mean, very sad story overall. I just hope that there is some sort of justice, because like you can't say Jake unalived himself because of his dad, but obviously that was a huge factor. So like, can the law not get involved? I don't know, maybe it's too technical. Let me know in the comments down below if you know more than me on that. But there we go, I'm going to leave it there. I'd normally say hope you guys enjoyed. I mean, obviously that's not an enjoyable story, but I hope, like me, you found a message in the end, and I've taken something away from this story, because I know I definitely have. So thank you for listening and watching as always. Catch you on the next one. Take care.